Corey Benicki asked me to create a beastmaster build that wasn't garbage. And it's kind of hard. Beastmasters are torn apart online. But being able to summon another creature in the fight with you is pretty helpful, especially in the early games. I mean, just it being able to soak up damage can get you through a lot of tough bosses. So we're going to use a trick to buff these animals up as strong as they can possibly be. We're going to take a subclass so we can augment our ranger spells so they're not the horrible suck. And we're going to specialize into dual wielding 2 giant flails that have no business being dual wielded together. Our equipment is going to stack on tons of additional elemental attack. We'll have Hunter's Mark on multiple targets at the same time. That way we don't have to worry about recasting it so damn much. And if we happen to get hit, which won't happen often, we're probably going to be resistant to that damage. Corey Benicki's request came from TikTok, and honestly, I'm surprised I didn't get a bunch of Beastmaster requests earlier. Beastmaster doesn't get near the amount of credit that it deserves. Well, it is up against Gloomstalker, which was one of the best subclasses to have, so I understand, but like, come on, don't you want a pet bear? And the dog has a sword in its mouth, for Christ's sakes. There'll be chapters below if you wanted to skip around, and until then, I'll see you in a bit. So the first level we're going to choose for our Ranger build is Sorcerer. We're not going to start off with Ranger. The saving throws that Rangers gets is garbage, hot garbage, not worth your time. We want to be able to keep our Hunter's Mark going, so we'll pick Sorcerer for the Constitution saving throws, and we'll be using their abilities later. It's not like we're just throwing it away. Now there's tons of choices here. I always really like to do the Draconic Ancestry Cold for a lot of my Sorcerer and melee cross builds. It lets you cast Armor of Agathis, which is super helpful. It'll give you temporary HP while doing cold damage to the target at the same time. We're gonna have a good amount of spell slots in the end, so we don't plan on upcasting Hunter's Mark to 4th level, so let's upcast Armor of Agathis to 4th level, giving us a ton of defense. Spells I like to grab here are Shield and Magic Missile, both really good choices. Enhanced Sleep is also a very good choice. Shield we'll be using to the very end, so always make sure that you pick that up. It's going to jump up as a reaction and give us a +5 to our AC. As stats go, I like to make sure that my strength is going to be a 17. I like to keep dexterity around the 13 range. Our next ability score increase is going to push that to 18 and then 14. I dump intelligence and I keep wisdom and charisma both around the 12 range. We're going to use magic quite a bit, but it's all going to be indirect and buffing and enhancing spells, so we don't really need a large spell DC or a large spell attack modifier. Getting our 2nd level, we are moving into Ranger here, making sure that we pick all the abilities that give us resistances to magic. Prioritize those for sure. Fire is like the most element that's going to be used against you, so having a resistance to it in the beginning is going to be incredibly helpful. As the other perk that Ranger gets, it's kind of a toss-up. I'm not a big fan of any of these perks that they get. You do have the ability to get Bounty Hunter, which makes Ensnared Strike a disadvantage for other people, but I suggest picking the Favored Enemy Ranger Knight, giving you the ability to equip heavy armor. Moving into our 2nd level of Ranger, we'll be able to pick a fighting style. I pick 2-weapon fighting. This lets us use our ability modifier with our offhand attacks. Our next level in Ranger unlocks our subclass, and this is where you can pick Beastmaster. And Beastmaster lets you have a skill that you can use once a short rest to summon an animal companion to fight along with you. Now each one of these animals have their own abilities, their own passive abilities, their attacks work on different modifiers, so it's really good to understand the bases of these animals and what skills that they use. We're going to spend the game giving them items and spells to augment their abilities. Going into your inventory, you can right click on an item and select drop. This item will now be on the floor. Take control of your beast and right click on that item or potion and use the drink action. This potion is now being consumed and actively working on your animal. I like to use the strength potions, hill giant, cloud giant, whatever, on the bear and the boar, as their attacks will be based on strength. Giving that potion to the wolf isn't going to help much but his jump distance, because he uses his dexterity for all his biting attacks. The bear and the boar are what I main for this, because they are the easiest to augment with these strength potions, making their attacks crazy higher than they can possibly be without it. The bear companion comes with a taunt ability, one of the few in the game, honestly. It's an action that forces other creatures to fight it instead of you. It also, at level 5, unlocks an ability to disarm targets and drop their weapons out of their hands, and it's incredibly useful. These animals come with their specific abilities and then level up as you level up your ranger score. The boar comes with a charge ability that rushes forward in a line and knocks people prone, but then at level 5, you're able to enrage the boar, giving it resistances to certain damages and getting another attack on its bonus action. The 4th level we're going to take in Ranger gives us a feat, and I choose dual wielding. This is going to let us hold 2 weapons in our hands that don't have the light property and give us a little bonus to our AC. Our next level is going to be 5 in Ranger, unlocking second attack. This level also increases all of our pets up to the next degree. Their HP is going to increase. They all get some kind of cute helmet. They'll get additional AC from your proficiency modifier. They'll get additional skills. If you're going to multi-class with the Beast Ranger, I suggest at least making sure that it gets to level 5, or the animal is just not going to have enough HP to survive in the late game. Here, our next level goes into Sorcerer. We unlock meta magic here at this point, giving us 2 points to augment our Ranger spells. Picking Twin is the most important one, and you could consider taking Careful. There's going to be some equipment later on that has AoE skills, so it's nice to not hit your friends with it, but I definitely suggest you take Twinning, because at this point, we can now use Twinning spell on Hunter's Mark to mark 2 different targets at the same time. Now, what some people don't know about Beastmaster is the animals all have one specific passive ability that they all share, and that is Praise Scent, and this means that they also get the same damage increase that you get when you Hunter's Mark a target. From here, I would just go back into Ranger and level it up to level 8. Here in this section, you'll be able to get an ability score increase, giving you an 18 strength and a 14 dexterity. You'll be able to pick resistances again. I suggest picking acid, but you know, if you're in an area where you're getting hit by cold and you want the boost, it's definitely a good option. The only level 2 Ranger spell that I think is worth it at all is Spike Growth. I definitely wish they had more of the D&D Ranger spells like Zephyr Strike, but Lesser Restoration could be useful as well if you're fighting ghouls and getting paralyzed a lot. This is super helpful to knock that out, as you definitely do not want to be paralyzed, but I really just like Spike Growth. We end Ranger there at level 8 and move back into Sorcerer for 3 and 4. 3 gives us more meta magics. Quicken Spell could be very useful if you need to heal really fast or some kind of emergency. Quicken Spell is definitely good for emergencies. But the most important thing here are the level 2 Sorcerer spells. Misty Step is a fantastic add-on. I definitely suggest taking Misty Step. Enlarge Reduce, we're going to use quite a bit. Enlarge Reduce gives us the ability to increase creatures by 1 size or decrease them by 1 size, giving them a negative penalty to their attack or a positive penalty to their attack. Positive penalty is nothing. Anyway, so we're going to twin us and our animal companion to a larger size, giving us a d4 to all our damages. It also makes us basically impossible to push around and enhances the boar's rush ability to just cover this huge area. As far as equipment goes, being able to have access to heavy armor is going to be a huge benefit to you through the entire game. My favorite heavy piece of armor for this character is Reaper's Embrace, which is a object of armor that everyone's going to get in the game at a certain point. Right at the end of Act 2, after defeating Ketheric, this is what you pull off his body. As a 20 AC, it minuses 2 off all incoming damage. He has an ability that you can toggle on or off that makes you completely unmovable, but you'll have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws, but again, you can turn it off. It comes with a skill that creates a huge ring around you that has a numbing effect, which gives you advantage to hit them and totally destroys their movement. The weapons I chose for this build got me really excited. I've been wanting to dual wield flails for a very long time, so at Act 2 at Moonrise Towers, you have the ability to pick up something called the Mercolite Scourge. This is a D8 weapon attack +1 plus a D6 necrotic damage. So putting 2 of these in your hands and going crazy does tons of damage. To keep hammering in that necrotic damage, we put on the Horns of the Berserker, which is a helmet that you could buy from the Dancing Axe in Rivington. This does hurt you a little bit if you don't do any kind of damage. It's just a D4 necrotic, but it adds 2 points of necrotic to every one of our many hits, and it's a +2 for us to hit, so it's an incredibly good add-on for all this. Now, if you liked the idea of this build, but you didn't like the Beastmaster part, there is a helmet that kind of bypasses it all, so you can go swing your flails and do your necrotic damage without touching this part of Ranger. And that's the Grimskull helmet. You'll find this after feeding Grim in the Adamantium Forge. This gives you a fire resistance, a resistance to critical hits, and to be able to cast Hunter's Mark once the short rest. It's basically Ranger in a helmet, so if you wanted to experiment with this and not touch Ranger at all, then, you know, there's your way. Since I was dual wielding 2 weapons that did additional elemental damage, I wanted to just stack on as much elemental spikes as I could. So I wore the flawed Helldust gloves to add a d4 of fire to each one of our swings. And I used the strange conduit ring that you can find in the crush to add a d4 of psychic to every one of our swings, as long as we're concentrating. And since we will be using Enlarge or Hunter's Mark constantly, we'll always be concentrating. My other ring is the Killer Sweetheart. This is a ring that you can find in Shar's Gauntlet. Once a long rest, as long as we take down a target, we can choose when our next critical hit is going to be. Early game, I like to use the Boots of Striding. These boots do kind of what the Reaper armor does, where we can't go prone and we can't be moved as long as we're concentrating. And again, we'll always have Hunter's Mark going, so, you know, we'll always can't be prone. Later in the game, the Space Shunt boots, which you could get off of the Murderer Suspect, I'm not going to tell anything more about that. These let you cast Dimension Door once a long rest, which is going to be very handy if you and your big bear or your big boar or whatever can't get past a stretch of land or something, or need to close the distance. It's a really helpful trick. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, I'd appreciate a like and a sub. I'm a little new around here, and if not, hey, well, maybe next time. Drop a comment what you think my next build should be, and I'll see everyone later. Okay, bye.